To some people, mangroves look like a tangle of trees at the edge of the sea. Mud, salt, mosquitoes, a coastline that seems inconvenient. And that first impression is exactly the problem. Because mangrove forests are not just trees near water, they are living infrastructure built by biology, holding together coastlines, filtering water, sheltering marine life, and stabilizing ecosystems in places where land and ocean constantly compete. And they're shrinking, not because nature failed, but because human activity keeps turning mangrove habitat into something else, something profitable, something developable, something easier to ignore. To understand what's happening, it helps to start with what mangroves actually are. Mangrove forests aren't one plant. They're communities, trees and shrubs that thrive in extreme conditions, especially in the intertidal zone between high and low tides. These are places defined by brackish or saline water, low oxygen, waterlogged soils, and tropical or subtropical temperatures, generally between 25 degrees north and 25 degrees south latitude, where freezing is rare. The Global Mangrove Watch lists 64 species of mangroves that can live in these intertidal zones. In some places, mangrove forests are made up of multiple species that occupy different niches, like a coastal neighborhood divided by elevation and salinity. In Puerto Rico, for example, red mangroves dominate lower elevations, while black and white mangroves grow higher up. These species survive by doing something most trees cannot: breathing and anchoring themselves in mud that holds very little oxygen. Mangroves absorb oxygen through pores called lenticels, and their roots can take on wildly different shapes, depending on the species and the environment. Red mangroves grow prop roots, arched supports that reach into the water and mud, like stilts. These roots don't just hold the tree up, they slow wave energy and allow sediment to settle underneath. That sediment accumulation helps reduce erosion and soften storm surge. Black mangroves use a different strategy, pneumatophores. These are tube-like roots that grow upward out of the mud, acting like snorkels for gas exchange. White mangroves thrive further inland with root systems designed for stability and respiration in less salty conditions. And in the right places, mangroves can grow surprisingly large. While many are moderate in height, some regions exceed expectations. The swamps around the Gabon estuary in Africa can host mangroves over 200 feet, about 65 metres tall, and forests around 130 feet tall, about 40 metres, are not uncommon in places like Ecuador. So these are not fragile, decorative shrubs. They are tough coastal systems, evolved to withstand shifting water levels in salty soils. But tough doesn't mean invulnerable. The threats to mangrove forests are not mysterious. They are mostly human choices, some direct, some indirect, and some slow enough to be mistaken for normal. The most direct threat is also one of the most lucrative. Commercial shrimp and prawn farming has transformed large sections of coastal wetlands into rectangular ponds and canals, especially in parts of Southeast Asia. One example shows how quickly this conversion can happen. In 2008, 54% of the Mahakam Delta was dedicated to ponds for shrimp production, and the environmental footprint doesn't stop at land conversion. These ponds are often treated as sealed systems, which leads to chemical disinfectants, antibiotics, manufactured feed pellets, and large amounts of polluted effluent. When the water becomes too polluted to keep operations going, the site is abandoned, and the industry shifts elsewhere along the coast to start again. The scale is staggering. Shrimp farming has contributed to the destruction of nearly a quarter of mangrove forests since 1980. In the Philippines, aquaculture is responsible for about 50% of mangrove loss, and in Myanmar, the Irrawaddy Delta, home to the country's largest remaining mangrove area, has lost over 80% of its mangroves since the 1970s, largely through fish or shrimp farming and coastal development. There is a key point embedded here. Mangrove loss isn't always accidental. It is often structural. It's the predictable outcome of global demand, weak regulation, and ecosystems treated as empty space. One proposed mitigation is to integrate shrimp farming into mangrove ecosystems in ways that keep tidal flows intact, reducing the need for antibiotics and disinfectants and avoiding clear cutting. But that requires oversight and long-term planning, and those are exactly what extractive systems tend to avoid. In some regions, the growth of commercial shrimp farming may have slowed, but another pressure has accelerated. Palm oil production is now 40 times what it was in 1970. Much of that industry growth has occurred in Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and it has reshaped landscapes at enormous scale. Rainforests and mangrove forests are cleared to make space for monocrop plantations. That means lost habitat, reduced biodiversity, and erosion of the very services mangroves provide, like stabilizing soils and storing carbon-rich sediments. And once a mangrove area is converted to a plantation, it's not just a tree loss, it's a system loss: shoreline structure, water filtration, nursery habitat, and resilience. Then there's development, because coastline is valuable. Oceanfront property is still oceanfront property, and clearing mangroves for housing, infrastructure, dredging, and filling continues around the world. One example comes from Tampa Bay, Florida. The region has lost 44% of its mangroves and marshes in the last 100 years, including 20% since the 1980s. Historically, community-level threats included wood harvesting for buildings, charcoal production, fuel, fishing, and medicinal plant use. Today, the biggest shifts often come from construction and coastal modification, dredging, filling, and shoreline reshaping that increases erosion and destabilizes what remains. Pollution doesn't always arrive as an obvious catastrophe. Often it's a steady flow. Aquaculture and agriculture introduce pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides that travel down rivers and into the coast. Sewage and oil spills add further stress. And pollution has a cruel secondary effect. When mangroves are removed, sedimentation patterns change. Metals and contaminants that had settled in place can be disturbed, stirred up, and redistributed, contaminating seawater and the organisms living there. So mangrove loss can magnify pollution, even when the original pollutant source stays the same. Tourism is a paradox. It can destroy what it came to see. Excessive, unmanaged tourism can lead to damaged flora and fauna, infrastructure pressure, and plastic pollution. But tourism isn't inherently harmful. If it's managed carefully, it can become a revenue stream for local communities that supports protection rather than clearing. The difference is governance, whether the ecosystem is treated as a living asset or as disposable scenery. Climate change adds pressure at a planetary scale. Rising global temperatures and sea levels contribute to mangrove destruction. In theory, if a forest is undisturbed and sea levels rise gradually, mangroves can migrate inland. In practice, inland space often isn't available. Coastal regions are frequently modified by farms, roads, cities, and seawalls. That blocks the natural retreat route. Warming temperatures have also made it possible for mangroves to extend beyond their traditional range. North and south of 25 degrees latitude. But expansion doesn't automatically offset loss, especially when the coastlines that might support new mangroves are already developed and fragmented. Then there's an emerging threat that's easy to underestimate: invasive species. As ecosystems shift through trade, development, and climate disruption, new species can spread rapidly and outcompete native mangroves. Madagascar provides a stark example. One report described invasive species expanding from 80 to over 250. In China, marsh grasses introduced decades ago have spread along coastlines and contributed to mangrove loss. And in China and Brazil, a fast reproducing mangrove species called Soneratia apetala, native to the Indian Ocean region, has spread into new habitats and can crowd out native species. A single tree can bear more than 2,000 fruits, each containing about 60 seeds, a reproductive strategy that can quickly overwhelm ecosystems that evolved without it. This is how ecological change becomes self-accelerating. One disruption creates conditions for another, and the system shifts away from its original balance. Mangroves occur in tropical coastal areas, but their impact reaches far beyond those zones, into food systems, coastal economies, and climate resilience. Properly managed mangroves can be self-perpetuating, but the pursuit of fast money, shrimp ponds, palm oil plantations, and coastal real estate keeps winning in places where regulation is weak or incentives are misaligned, and the consequences are not small. Mangrove loss has severe impacts, with claims that it contributes to nearly 20% of global emissions from deforestation, alongside estimates of economic damages equivalent to $6 to $42 billion annually. A forest that looks like mud and roots is, in reality, a coastal defense system, a biodiversity engine, a stabilizer. And when it's cleared, the coastline doesn't simply change. It becomes less protected, less productive, and less resilient, often permanently. Thanks for watching.